All right, so let's move on for our first session. I'd like to introduce our session speaker, Roshan. Roshan is the Senior Technical Specialist, Information Protection and Compliance from Microsoft. And Roshan has over 15 years of security and compliance experience. She is the compliance, risk, and privacy technical specialist at Microsoft, helping clients with many things like information protection, data loss prevention, information governance, record management, insider risk, and e-discovery. And Roshan is also a certified data privacy security engineer, so it's a CDPSE. So if you're curious about some related industry certifications, we will talk about during our panel discussion. And Roshan will talk about to recognize sensitive and personal data and protect privacy.
Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. It's a lovely afternoon. I hope it's an afternoon for your time zone. For my time zone, it's just 4 p.m. It's a winter time in Canada, and I'm based out of Calgary. And thank you so much for joining this session. So today, I'm going to talk about how to identify sensitive and personal data in your data asset. What are the challenges? What can you do to kind of identify those? What tools or the capabilities of the tools that you need to know? And a little bit about privacy, protecting privacy for your organization's data. Okay, so let me know if you have any question. We have a panel session after this session, and we can take the questions in that session. Okay. Okay, moving to the next slide. So today's agenda is to, again, as I have mentioned earlier, so I will talk about in two aspects. So one is identifying and protecting sensitive data and also personally identifiable data, which we call PII. And the second part is the modern way of managing privacy of those sensitive data, or the PII data. Okay, so so what is sensitive data? Let's start with the basic one first here. Okay, so data sensitivity is actually context sensitive, and it depends on many factors. So it including regulations and company policy, contractual obligation, and user expectation, and all those. But it may depend, it may vary from industry to industry, from organization to organization. So it is absolutely context sensitive. So once you have a context, you can define your sensitive information for your organization. On the other hand, what is PII, or personally identifiable information, right? So it's a lot more than just your credit card or health card or driver's license number, right? So any information that can identify a person is called a personally identifiable information. And those attributes can be from financial aspect, social aspect, historical or external attribute aspect. For example, your ethnicity, your demographic information, your identification numbers, or bank account, transaction, credit card. So all those information, any way, if we can identify a person, that is considered a personally identifiable information, right? So the next part is, why do we need to identify sensitive data and PII, right? So why do we need that? So because of the data estate, the digital estate that we have right now, I mean, compared to the long time ago when we have paper-based or maybe on-prem based, now our digital estate has grown. We have complex environment. We have cloud, we have devices, we have on-prem, I mean, multiple type of devices, personal and also company provided device. So it's a very complex environment, right? So and to protect that environment, the external threats are also growing, right? So external threats from the hackers, the attackers, they will they are after your sensitive information so that they can expose this and it can break your reputation, or they can even sell this one for monetary gain, right? Internal risks are also increasing. So, for example, your IP theft, policy violation, insider trading, those are some of the critical aspect in the insider side also. So these are the risks that we always see and talk about. But the next part is your security and privacy regulations. So some of the regulations, obligations from a regulatory act and laws perspective. So in Canada, we have PIPEDA, FOIPA, and PHIA, and that guides you about how to protect your personally identifiable information from a healthcare or a health industry perspective, how to protect your PHI information, health information. So those are some of the aspects. So obviously we need to protect. First of all, we need to identify those sensitive data because we want to protect those from external and internal risk, and also be compliant with those privacy and security regulations, right? Now the question is, it is challenging. We often hear from our clients and customers and all other organizations that we work with is it's very challenging. So the challenge starts with the growing continuation of data, right? So it is growing and it's growing exponentially across the digital frontier, right? And as we have seen in the last 2 years, it's not slowing down anytime soon. So from users who are on-prem to office and third-party vendors, partners, personal devices, and applications, it's everywhere. And IDC estimates that 175 gigabytes by 2025, and it's a huge lot of data, right? So when you have this much data in your organization, the next issue is lack of visibility into your data estate, right? So you don't have, some of the organization, they come to us and say, I don't know where is my sensitive data. I don't know who has access to it, or my PII data, where it is, how do I know before I even go to protect those, before I even comply with the regulation. I have no idea, no clue. So can you help us? So that's the real challenge right now, right? So lack of visibility into your data estate, right? So so now in this session, what I'm going to talk about is how to identify, or what are some of the approach you can take to identify those sensitive information within your organization, right? So the first step here is to define your sensitive data. So sit down with your data office, with your cybersecurity office, and your privacy office. So this job is not only for one department. It is actually organization-wide discussion, right? So you need to identify your sensitive what is how do you define your sensitive data for your organization? HR can say these are some of the documents that I think is critical for me, right? Marketing and finance, they have different other sets of documents. So once you have defined that these are some of the examples of our sensitive information, then the second part is to analyze, to identify few patterns. So currently in the industry, we see that there are this type of patterns that you can see. So one is a pattern based, the second could be an exact data match, and I will give you an example in my next few slides. So there are a few datas with no pattern, but maybe a document template is your sensitive information, okay? And then there are some data or information that has absolutely no pattern. So it's absolutely random. Sorry. So now once you have identified those one, the tool that you need to select it could have some of the capabilities listed in this side, right? So it has the already built-in patterns so that it's easy for you to start from day one. So you are scanning that, you're using that tool to scan your organization, and it is finding all those pattern-based information because it's built in, right? But then you also need to have the capability to create your own custom patterns, which is not falling into those built-in patterns, right? And the tool can have the ability to detect exact data match, and also maybe in this world, you're using some machine learning to learn from multiple samples. Okay, so those are some of the capabilities or attributes of the tool that we are looking into here. Okay, so in the next slide, we are going to give you an example how do you determine pattern-based sensitive information, right? So let's say a very simple example is a credit card number. So it's a 16-digit number, okay? It's a digit, and it has a expiry date with it and a 3-digit CVV number. So it could be a pattern, right? So you can use a regex expression to create this pattern so that any 16-digit number with an expiry date and a CVV can be identified as a credit card information. Now, it some of the issue is that it may have many false positives because any 16-digit number, whether it's a credit card number or not, can be detected as sensitive information, right? And you don't want to happen that, right? So in that scenario, some of the tools, they take consideration of some other supporting elements, or maybe confidence level or proximity. So some of the parameters that can fine tune or reduce your false positives, okay? So that it's you can select, or it can identify your sensitive information more precisely, okay? So that's from the pattern base. The second is the exact data match. So the exact data match is, let's say you have a database of your patient record, okay? So you have your patient ID, first name, last name, date of birth. Now, if anyone is sending an email, or anyone is sending a document that has these four information, or any subset of this information, it will detect as sensitive information, right? So it will basically enables you to create custom sensitive information types, and some of the other characteristics could be, it can be refreshed daily and contain up to 100 million rows of data. I mean, with a large amount of data, so that you're not limited to certain amount of data, right? And you can update those information regularly. So it's not fixed on this, only on this information, but you can regularly update those. So that's another aspect, the exact data match, right? The third one was about, we call it document fingerprinting. And the idea behind this document fingerprinting is that sometimes in your organization, you may have a form, right? A very standard form, let's say for your employee information for, HR, or maybe purchase order, or a patient record information, right? So this technique will take a blank form, and it will create a fingerprint of that, okay? Now, next time when you fill up that form with sensitive information, obviously the patient title number and some other IDs, it will actually be able to identify that as a sensitive information, okay? So again, this fingerprinting technique is another technique to help you to identify your sensitive information type. The fourth one is basically nothing that is not matched anything from the previous one. So it's not pattern based, it's not a form based, it's not a exact data match. I mean, it has no form or shape. It's so random, right? So in those cases, some of the tools that they have this machine learning capability. So in very simple way, the way it works is that we call this trainable classifier, and you can train that classifier with a number of samples as seeds, and then it will learn from these documents or the samples, right? And then it will be ready for identifying similar information. Now you are able to first test before pushing it to your organization, operationalize before operationalizing that. So you can test that one, and once you're satisfied, you can operationalize that for your organization. Now, one quick thing here, it may not be 100%, okay? So it's very random. So what it tries to do is, let's say for invoice or price codes or some work orders, it will try to find match at some percentage, and you can select the threshold whether you are comfortable taking from 80% and upward. You can take those as your sensitive information, or then you can go ahead and see whether those are really your sensitive information or not, right? So we have heard that some of the organizations and the clients, they really were benefited using this machine learning based approach, because not all your sensitive data is pattern based. Yeah, I mean, that's the truth, right? So so these are some of the techniques to identify, or the scanner ability, right? Now, the next step here is to kind of scan your data as state. So ideally, the scanner, we are looking to have a scanner that can scan your multi-cloud environment, your on-prem environment, all applications. But we understand that, I mean, at this point, you may not have that opportunity, or the tools are not that mature. In that case, you can select a fragmented solution. So point-based solution, let's say one for multi-cloud, one for on-prem, right? So those scanners will help you to definitely identify your sensitive information and PII. So next, I'm going to show you some of the sample reports, right? So now that we have understand how the identification works, or the techniques behind the identification process, now we are going to show you some of the samples so that you understand what are you expecting, right? So for example, this is a sample scan report that will show you, here is your top sensitive information types in your organization, and it will list all the sensitive or PII information, the top ones, so that you know, okay, so there are SSNs and the passport numbers are in your or in your data estate, driver's license, and all those credit card numbers and all those, right? So then you can take action. The next one is the ability to explore those contents. So sometimes we also hear from our customers or some of the organizations that, okay, only this information, I mean, it's helpful. It is giving them an understanding of how many or what are the critical information. But again, we want to understand where are those information storing right now so that we can protect it right away, right? So that's the next question. So to answer those questions, so there are some of the tools available that can explore your contents, and it will actually show you, okay, these social security numbers, your SharePoint has 10, or maybe OneDrive has 27, something like that. And sometimes you'll be able to click and drill down to exactly see which documents or who are the owners of that document, so that you can take actions or take controls on those things, okay? Now, This is another scan report from a machine learning base. So it's similar, but it's a purchase order base. So once you have trained your classifier, again, it will scan and identify those informations, and it will list where it has found those type of purchase orders. This is another scan report for PII information, again, which locations the PII informations are mostly. So from this graph, it shows that it's in the exchange mostly. So it shows kind of an information that either your people are communicating through email, the PI information. So probably you need to have some actions on that, right? So this is it's just telling you that information. So some multi-cloud approach, for example, this document has a sensitive information and it's located in this cloud app, right? So it could be Microsoft Cloud, it could be Google, Azure, Amazon, and all those clouds, right? So those are the scan. This is another sample report for on-prem. So we understand that not all organizations are cloud-based. So many of the organizations are still on-prem. They have those servers. So there are some of the tools available that can also help you identify your sensitive information or PII data within your on-prem, and it may look like this, that okay, so these is the tax identification numbers and passport numbers are there, and these are the file repositories where this type of informations are available. Okay, so yeah, so that's the quick overview on the first challenge that we see on the data governance, that is the identifying of data, sensitive data and PII data. So far we learned about the identification process and the scanning tool capability, and some samples of the report so that you know what you're expecting from those tools. Okay, now the second part is protecting privacy. Or so the protecting privacy, it's a very confusing word, I would say, right? So protect and privacy, I think these has different meaning to different personas, right? So here we are taking an example of a Chief Information Security Officer, Sharif, and a Chief Privacy Officer, Deborah, and we're trying to see what are the top of mind for them, right? So Sharif, he is saying that I need to ensure all of our sensitive data is rightfully classified and protected. I also need to ensure my environment is protected from intentional and unintentional oversharing or data loss. So that's his main concern, right? On the other side, Deborah, she's saying that I need to ensure that our all employees are handling PII and PHI in accordance to the law and respecting our customers, our suppliers, and our own internal employees' privacy. So if we think a little bit deeper here, that they're both objective has similarities and some differences, right? So both of them want to protect their data. So they do not want to expose PII or maybe sensitive data because there is a reputation cost or even some monetary cost to it, right? So so from a sheriff's side, he wants to identify those sensitive data and then classify those, protect those using different techniques. On the other side, Deborah, she also wants all these technologies, all these steps, but she has some other obligations to do from a regulation perspective or a law perspective. So she has to do consent management, data subject request management, and records management also, right? So these are some of the other top of mind for her. Now, let's quickly look into how do you protect those sensitive data. So the protection of sensitive data, first of all, we identified those one, we scanned, we know where is our sensitive data is. Now it will help you actually to protect by using classification technology. So there are classification technology that will label your data based on some of the classification schema that you have, public, general, confidential. And based on this classification, the level of protection that you want. For example, for confidential, you may want to apply encryption or access control, but the public one, you don't want to do anything. It's just a public document, right? So, and all those will be applied in data in use, data in motion, and data at rest, right? So once you have applied and you have created those rules to protect and block and allow or share, there is another good tool which will help you to monitor the risky activities. So from an insider risk perspective, not just from external, but from an insider risk perspective, I mean, how many if there is suspicious behavior going on within your organization, if someone is downloading so many data and then leaking it to outside, or maybe sending it to their personal emails, right? So those type of activities can also be monitored using a tool named called insider risk management. So yeah, that tool can be really helpful to identify or monitor the risky behavior, right? Now, now that we protect our data from for a CISO, on the other side, the CPO side, so they have few extra challenges, right? Or I would say not extra, but it's unique challenges that they have, right? So the conventional privacy management, it would focus on finding personal data just for record keeping, right? And it could be, I mean, they're very manual based or Excel based or survey based. I mean, they will send the document to HR or maybe on a project that, hey, um, are you are you taking any PII data? Are you storing it? Where are you storing it? How you are storing it? All those informations, it's so manual based, right? So those are some of the unique challenges. Now, um, we think that there is a modern way to manage this privacy. So this in this modern way, we want to identify personal information and critical privacy risk, whether there is a privacy regulation obligation or not, but just to have a better privacy posture for our organization. And we want to have it so seamlessly so that I as a I mean, for my organization, I know where my PII data is right now. So that and I know I have protected those. There is a lot of controls I have provided, and those are controlled and monitored. So that will give me a satisfaction on that, right? So the second piece is kind of automating those risk mitigation. So I don't want to be doing manual based, like taking all the surveys and Excel files to someone and relying on them, not based on that, but based on automatic identification of data and putting some context on those data. Like if those data is transferred from one region to another region, if those data is I mean, sitting overshared with someone else, right? Or it is sitting idly there for more than a year and no one is touching this one. So those type of context I want to understand, right? And the third part is basically empowering your user and to so that they can make smart data handling decisions, right? So this one is very interesting, and personally I love this approach because think about myself, right? So I may create a lot of data, of course, for my organization, from a job role perspective. Let's say I work in a healthcare and I have to take um, patient record or health information or their disease information on a daily basis, and I'm just creating those data in a file or a database. But then wouldn't it be helpful for me to, if there is a system that will let me know, hey, Roshan, this document that you have created a year ago and it was sitting idly in your computer and you have never opened it, never used it, are you sure that you want to keep it? So some sort of machine learning or maybe artificial intelligence just telling me, hey, what do you want to do with this, right? So those type of interesting, I would say, interesting way that will empower me as an end user to also do my due diligence to protect my company or company's privacy, right? So yeah, those are some of the way I think it's a modern approach. So here's a little bit of example on what we see in the industry. So personal data found in your organization, again, by location, you can identify this one. And then data transfer detected in your organization, right? So how many data transfer that has PII in it, and that was detected. Some of the context that I wanted is that, for example, the PII data detected that has a public access, and then maybe data movement detected from UK to APAC, or maybe stale content containing personal data detected. So those ones, right? And the last one is end user perspective. So here, what you're seeing is that Sam, she was trying to send SSN number or full names to another colleague, but it's blocked, right? So it's a blocking policy that's actually, it's not allowing Sam to send any document or any information. The second one is, again, Sam has received an email saying that this document has credit card information and it's been shared with the multiple people. Do you still want to share with those people, or you want to keep it to yourself? So, and the good thing is you can do it within your email. You don't have to go back to the document or remove the shares, but it will allow you to do it from your email, right? The other one is another, I mean, the similar to this one, but it will send you an email showing this document has been sitting idle and do you still want to keep it or delete it? And from right from this email, you are able to do this, right? So yeah, so those are the modern way of privacy. So the takeaway for this session. So the first takeaway is identify and protect your sensitive data and PII. So first, define your sensitive data, talking to your all the business organizations, sitting together, defining your sensitive, and then use technology to scan your data estate to identify those sensitive and PII data and protect accordingly for those data. The other side is for the modern way. So again, identify your critical privacy risk and conflicts, automate those privacy operations, and empower your employees to take the smart data handling decisions, right? Yeah, so pretty much that's the end of my session. So there are, if you want to learn more about this, so there is an ebook available here for breakthrough ideas for compliance and data security. It's a free download. You can go ahead and download this one. And there is a Microsoft Virtual Training Day coming on November 29th. It's a free of cost. So you can also join that training and learn more about from a technology perspective, how to classify, loss prevent, and use sensitive labels to do that. Okay. Yeah, so that's all. Thank you very much for listening to me. Have a great afternoon or evening or morning and wherever you are in the world.